Welcome salam to everybody that's listening and joined, and apologies for the delay. So yes, inshallah, we're talking about the topic of marriage. So if anybody wants to give their contributions, how did you get married? Are you a Niqabi sister? Do you wear the Niqab? Have you ever worn it? And or has your decision to maybe not wear it been because you want to get married and you feel that it will be a hindrance to you getting married? That's another question. So let us know in the comments, inshallah. Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, sister. How are you doing? Alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah. It's okay. It's like these technical issues occur all the time. Like when you don't expect them, that's just what happens. Alhamdulillah. But you're here now. Are you joining on Insta as well? Yes. Okay, I'm just going to send an invite to you again on Insta, inshallah. Okay, she's gone again, so I'm not sure what's happening. So yeah, to those of you sisters who are listening, any Niqabis online here on Facebook, on YouTube, Instagram, have you had any experiences getting married while, you know, being a Niqabi, wearing the Niqab? And as well to sisters who don't wear it, if you've thought about wearing it before, have you thought, well, I don't want to wait, I don't want to wear it now because I'm not married yet? Has that been kind of something that's influenced your decision to not wear the Niqab perhaps? Let us know, inshallah, in the comments. It's part of our discussion today, inshallah. So, alhamdulillah, anyways, we're still waiting for the sisters to join. I don't know what's happened. She's having, obviously, a lot of technical issues. She joined and then she's exited again, so I'm not sure what's happening. I don't have her on Instagram or on the StreamYard feed either, so I don't know what's going on. But, inshallah, we're going to talk a little bit about how people get married today, inshallah. So as Muslims, basically, we can't date, okay? So that's common knowledge, obviously. But marriage is something exciting for a lot of us, especially talking about it, because this is it's half of our deen. The Prophet ﷺ told us that getting married is, you know, completing half of your deen. And it's not something that's easy, obviously, for people to do in general, because you're looking to marry somebody that you obviously want somebody that's going to be compatible with you. Inshallah. I think the sister's joined again. Assalamu alaikum, sister. It's okay, I can tell. I can tell, mashallah. Alhamdulillah, what can we do? What device are you using?
My laptop was not going through, so I just had to use my phone.
Right.
Just go on.
Okay.
I don't know.
Okay, so are you not joining on the Instagram? If you can't join on Instagram, it's okay. We can just leave it as it is, and I'll just, because I've got my phone there, but I think people will be able to hear you a little bit.
Okay, that's great, because my laptop, I don't know what's wrong today.
Alhamdulillah. Yeah, my laptops are crazy as well, actually. So we'll just leave it as is, inshallah. Okay. So I think inshallah, people that are on Instagram can hear. If you can hear Sister Najah, who has joined us, if you can hear her, she's not actually in the Instagram video with us today, but she's on the StreamYard, which is got next to me. So if you can hear her well, just let me know, inshallah. Okay, so yeah, Sister Najah, I was just basically talking about obviously how getting married is completing half your deen. So in Islam, it's important as well, especially I think as young Muslims, because you know, everybody, like, we can't date in our religion. There's no kind of, you know, having girlfriend and boyfriend. These things aren't allowed. And I think sometimes when people are young, you know, wearing hijab generally is seen as, like, in the West, people say, well, it can be difficult, for example. And, you know, there's a lot of pressures, social pressures as young people. You know, they want to, like, you know, they want to have normal lives. They want to have fun. They want to do things that they see others doing. And obviously, in living in the Western culture, part of that is having a girlfriend or a boyfriend, which is not allowed for us. And I think another issue as well we have in the Muslim community is that a lot of parents don't encourage their children to get married at a young age. So I want you, inshallah, if you could, to maybe talk about some of your personal experience of getting married, inshallah. Share with us a little bit, because I think you was wearing the niqab when you got married as well. So Would you like to introduce yourself for us, actually, just for the listeners a little bit, inshallah?
Okay, Assalamualaikum. My name is Najah.
So encourage their children to get married at a young age. So I want you to try.
Okay. Assalamualaikum. My name is Najah, and I am a blogger. I share about my life before getting married. I went through survival mode years and how I'm able, after leaving my home and getting married and going on a journey of healing myself. And I've got a daughter that's 3 years old, and I'm currently a student at university.
MashaAllah, alhamdulillah.
Yeah.
So can you just tell us, like, what was your process of getting married? And because you was wearing the niqab when you got married, so can you just tell us how that went? Because often I've asked the question just before you joined, actually, when you was having the difficulties, but the technical difficulties.
Yeah.
I asked people what are their kind of opinions on getting married with the niqab. Like, have there been any sisters, for example, who have chosen not to wear the niqab because they want to wait till they get married first? Because sometimes that is something that people think, that if you wear the niqab, for example, that you wouldn't be able to actually find a spouse because, like, nobody can see you, basically. So we obviously, that's related to looks being part of, you know, getting married. So what was your experience?
So me personally, like, when I went on my journey of practicing the religion, I just want to touch on that bit. I was like 16 years old, and I've never been around Muslim people in Germany because I lived in North London, and I was only exposed to non-Muslim people. So for me to even wear the hijab was like a big deal for me, and also, like, my parents never pressured us to wear it or anything else. So that in itself was a big deal, because even when I was going to wear the hijab, like, and start praying and all that, like, I just felt like no one see my hair, no one see the way I, like, see me, like, dressed in a jeans and a top. So how would I even get married as well? But I think, like, on that journey, like, I just kind of left that to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I feel like when you build that connection with your creator, you just actually believe that no matter, like, what you do, I mean, whatever you do, like, parts of the religion, that should actually stop you from a guy liking you and getting married. That's just how my mindset was at the time.
Yeah, definitely, yeah.
And moving forward to that, like, I did get, like, when I started wearing a hijab, I did get, like my mom was saying, like, who's going to see your face when you're going to get married? Also, I was very young, like 17, 18, 19, 20. So, you know, years that did used to pop up on my mind. Like, no one could see my face. So, how is the guy going to see me and marry me, basically? Because obviously, like, the person would need to see your face. So, for me, Jenny, I wasn't a sort of girl that, when I started practicing, I wasn't that sort of girl that used to even communicate with guys on my phone, stuff like that. So for me, like, I knew when it was time for me to get married and stuff, like, I knew, like, Allah Ta'ala will provide me that husband when the time is written for me to get married. So I just, obviously, like, I had my brother, like, he did look into other brothers, his friends and stuff like that, to kind of approach me for marriage. And I would actually have, like, a meetings in my home where they could see my face, and we'll conduct meetings like that. So I had that kind of, even though I didn't get married through my brother's friends, I had, like, there's, like, pure matrimony website, where you can, for single people who are practicing, who are looking to get married. And I just went on there, on that site, and then 3 months after, I got to know my husband that I'm married to now, through that, and we started just communicating. And one thing I liked about my husband, well, at the time, he wasn't my husband, but the one thing that made me want to go forward with it is because he didn't ask me for a picture. As in, other brothers on the platform would be like, oh, can I see a picture and stuff? And I just felt so uncomfortable with that, because I'm wearing Niqabi as well. So I just felt like they have access to it anytime. They can just go on it and go and look at it and show it to anyone else. was one of the out of all the brothers I was communicating with, he was like the only one that she did not ask for a picture or anything like that. So I just felt like this person's someone different, and I prayed harder on it, and I felt like I would like to go ahead with it. So he contacted my brother and my dad, and we had like a meeting in my house, stuff like that. And he saw me without my hijab, with my hijab on, but like without my niqab.
Yeah.
And I was dressed up but I wasn't dressed up in black as well.
Mm-hmm.
Like I was dressed up I wore like a kaftan, like a loose kaftan and a nice hijab.
Yeah.
Because there's different opinions on how you should look like when the guy comes to see you.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, like I felt with that kind of opinion where you get to where you lose clothing but looking attractive as well, not just all plain black or plain weather. So I did that, and then we had that meeting 3-4 months, and then I prayed harder, he did, and we wanted to go ahead right away with it. And we had a nikah done, and but we didn't live together until after the wedding day. So we had a year of planning, prepping for the walima.
Okay.
And after the wedding day, I moved in with my husband.
MashaAllah.
I think that's pretty much showing it.
Allahumma barik. Sounds beautiful and amazing. Wow. So you only had one meeting before you actually...
Oh no, I had we were communicating for 2 months, and then after we had 3-4 meetings.
Okay.
Yeah, and then we just kind of went ahead with that. I personally wouldn't advise that, but
in what sense do you mean? Like, why wouldn't you advise that? Because obviously it worked for you. So.
I guess maybe some people probably won't agree with things I'm going to share, but I just feel like I was only 24 years old when I got to know my husband. We got married, and I just thought at the time when I used to go to talk, that is what they kind of presented in a way, like when you get to know someone, you basically bring the guy to the house, it's formal, and you have your meetings, and you just ask questions like that, and then you kind of get married kind of thing.
Okay.
I personally, looking back from my own experience, I can't talk for everyone else, but from my own experience, I would actually prefer to marry someone that my brother did know, or my friend's brother. I don't know, something someone that ties into it that could actually vouch for this person's character. And because back then, when I used to go to talk to some, all it was just about make sure he prays, make sure he's got a job, and that's it.
Okay.
That's all you should be asked for.
Yeah.
So I was I personally would just marry someone I didn't know, and there is ways you can get to know someone in a permissible way. You don't really need to go behind doors and chit chat and do all sorts like that, like what people do. There is if your family are okay with it and you know it, and then you're with someone, say you've got a brother who can come along with you where you're not at home as a setting, say you go to a restaurant and your brother's there and the guy's there or something, so it kind of feels comfortable for
Yes, yeah.
both of you to be a bit open,
yes,
be
of course, yeah.
But I think, but I feel if you're just coming into the house and everyone's just looking at you, it's you can't actually bring up your personality. You feel you just have to prepare to say the right words to kind of everyone to be oh, he's a good person, you should go ahead with him.
Yeah, I see what you're saying, but I'm just thinking from his perspective as well, because I mean, did he come alone or did he come with a friend? Because that must have been quite difficult for him as well.
Yeah, because my husband is a Reba and his mom lives abroad. She lives in Japan.
Right.
So, and his dad obviously kind of moved on, and his person has got his own family. So he's come on his own and stuff like that. And obviously, he was very nervous. He just showed he was really nervous himself. And I just feel when you're in that setting, the person or you can't be yourself, and in for your personality to shine. And back then, when I used to go to talks and stuff, that's what was basically thrown at in talks for you to do. So I just thought this is the right way. Other way is haram. There's nothing married, but it's like thrown into the deep end. And also, I was quite young. I was only like 24. Me being a 30-year-old woman now, like looking back, I just felt I was doing what I was told to do, because I've never been around Muslims and stuff. And then I started being practiced, and I started going to talk in East London, and I started meeting these people. Other than that, like so for me personally, I would actually, if I was to remarry, like I personally would marry someone. I personally took time out to actually understand who he is, how his background is like, what's his family structure like, how was he raised, because these things play a part when you're living together, which wasn't really spoken about back when I was single. All I was just told, as long as he prayed, practicing, got the beard, that's it. Got a great guy. Yeah. So me personally, and it's like, and you think like there's no options because that's what you've been told. But I just felt like now I just understood that it's all to do with, like, I feel like the speakers, they kind of speak in a way like part of their own culture, and they're trying to, I feel like they're just person to bring it on like it's religion, but I feel like with Islam, like there's not one way of doing things. There's always options.
Oh, definitely. I agree with what you're saying, sister. But I think, subhanAllah, just listening to your story, and wallahi, it's very interesting. But I would think that for me personally, like in my experience, when I've had meetings with any brother, I would usually take my father with me, and he's not Muslim. But he would be the one to ask these kind of questions. Like he would ask the person about their family background, how was they raised, so all these kind of things, because that is the role that the family is supposed to play. So I'm a bit confused as to, like, I would expect that, because obviously the family usually would understand that there's two people, that are looking to get married. They're going to be very shy. So that's part of the benefits of having family there to kind of, they're supposed to kind of have your back when it comes to this kind of thing. But especially, I think from the girl side, I know in my experience, like sometimes if you go to meet somebody and you feel that you're interested in the person, like maybe you see the brother and you think, oh, he's mashallah, you can become like dumbstruck sometimes. Like you don't even know what to say. Do you know what I mean? Because you're like,
You're a bit nervous as well.
Exactly.
So,
and especially like for sisters, like when we don't mix with men on the, it's not something we do like on a regular basis, and especially this kind of thing. So, your family is there to kind of play that role, or a close friend, somebody who knows you very well, like, that person, if they come along with you, because my meetings haven't been like in my home or anything, but as I said, like when I've had meetings with brothers, I always just bring my dad with me, because I know that he's good at drilling people usually anyways. It hasn't always worked out like that. It hasn't always worked out like that, but alhamdulillah,
I think that's a blessing if you've got that. Like for me, at the time when I was getting married, my parents were already divorced, so they didn't actually leave the marriage in a good place.
Right.
So it kind of was like he basically kind of kept his distance away from us as well. So I really didn't really have that. I did have my brothers, but I don't think they even knew like what to even expect when it comes to a situation when your sisters get married, because obviously that should have been on the dad.
Of course,
So,
yeah.
So my brother's quite young, but at the time I was 24, he was 25, so he doesn't really know much himself. So
yes, of course.
He did what he thought was best, as well. So I guess some sisters probably don't have that. Like an uncle or a dad or someone to like ask us questions that is needed to kind of figure out what kind of person he is, what kind of background he is, because that really just plays a part.
Of course.
And so I didn't realize this after living with him, and obviously like he's been more open about sharing about his childhood, his lifestyle, how he was, and I realized that we're completely like different in the way we were raised, and just completely different in so much aspects in different ways. Like unbelievable. So I feel like you definitely need to ask questions like, how were the parents like? Was it loving marriage? Even when they separated, how did it end? How was it like? Because that all does play a part. It's not spoken enough.
Yes.
because some people could come with their own emotional baggage or traumas,
of course,
all this kind of stuff that does play a part in the way they just are as well. So yeah, like all these things I've only learned this from reading and watching a lot of, I think what really helped me was listening to a lot of non-Muslim YouTubers talk about relationships, because they're so open and so what to kind of expect when you're in a relationship, what are boundaries, what are things you should accept from the other partner, especially with me. Like I've never been with a man before, like except my husband.
Yeah.
So I have to learn all these things from my own research as well. So and I come to find that like there's a lot to it. It's not just about the person, like his things that he's brought into the marriage as well, like things he's experienced from his childhood that has an effect in the way you guys live together.
Yes, of course. Definitely. No, wallahi, subhanAllah, you said so many things and there's so much depth in what you've just said there. I just want to kind of, you know, because I don't want this just to be a talk about how do we get married kind of thing, but to give some advice to those sisters who, like you said, like if you could do things again differently, I want to pick out those things that you've been mentioning, because I think that's really, really important. So one of the things that you did mention, well, you've mentioned, mashallah, a lot of things, and you did pick up on basically the fact that your brothers were the ones that kind of helped you. But were your brothers married at the time as well?
Oh, no, one was single.
Yeah.
Yeah,
subhanallah. Yeah, so he was, it's just a new thing for him, subhanallah. He really, like, it's like, and so obviously he's done his best as well, like, but you know, this is the thing, like, I feel like this is really important because obviously as your brother, he did his best, he played his role as much as he could, but you know, he obviously didn't have that kind of experience as well, so it was a new thing for him too. And I think this is where when it comes to situations like this, it's beneficial, like you said, if you can have somebody else to vouch for the person, somebody who knows them. That's why I think it's beneficial to talk to somebody, maybe another brother from the masjid or the imam that he of the masjid that he attends, for example. I mean, I don't know if he didn't mention if he did that or not, so I'm not sure about that, but this is one of the things that you can do.
Yeah, and I feel like one of the sheikh, like I recently heard, was saying one thing, when it comes to marriage meetings, he said, don't think about the engagement, the nikah, have a 6-month period where you actually get to know one another.
Yeah.
Because within the 6 months, you are going to understand this person as much as possible. Because obviously everyone does know once they're married and living, you're going to know more about the person. But at least you had those 6 months with no formal proposal, no engagement, no nikah, just really understand this person and you as well. He can get understand of who you are, and within 6 months, like you're given enough time for both of you to be open to understand, like, you know, and you can see things in the person. You're thinking, actually, you know what, like I don't think we're actually good for one another. Maybe you look the part, maybe you do X, Y, and Z, but like even wise, like as my life partner, like I don't really feel like we are going to be suitable in that area, which will play about a problem once we're living together. So, but I wasn't even given this kind of advice. I only learned this kind of after I was getting married and going through a lot of like marriage problems, and I just didn't understand what was going on. And yeah, and I just had to learn it this way. And I guess like everyone's journey is different. I guess some people may have their dads, they got their mom to tell them about marriage, about men. I personally didn't have that. I had to learn in my own way. And I guess something like it's like I feel it's good in a way because now I've got my own daughter, so when she's looking to get married in the future, like I can able to give her all my experiences and things that I've gone through for her to learn and pick up from. And whether she chooses to do it that way, it's her personal choice. I can't
yeah, of course, yeah, of course.
Really, like, force it on her.
I'm just going to read one of the comments here, sister. Sorry, somebody says, in your face says, people forget between husband and wife is shaitan. I'm not sure about that. And so couples blame each other while shaitan laughs away. And yeah, this is true sometimes. And you know what, I think, you know, like what I like that you've mentioned is that you've had to learn a lot of things in the marriage. And I think this is the key point that you've mentioned, because people think that You know, it doesn't matter how much you learn about somebody before you get married. You're never going to know them until you're married to them. That's the reality. And this is like, for example, even when you see, you know, in the non-Muslim culture, they live together because that's their way of getting to know each other. And so they don't want to get married, but they live together. So like you're trying each other out basically. And like when you live with the person, then you will know the person. But, you know, obviously we can't do that as Muslims, and it doesn't make sense to me anyways. But the reality is this is something that we need to take on board. You can come from exactly the same background as somebody. They could have been raised exactly the same as you, and you still don't get along with them when you're living with each other. You still might not be compatible. So there's so many things that come into play, and like being the same as somebody doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to really complement each other and, you know, have that, you know, everything in life requires balance. So that's the thing, like, you know, learning is a big part of it. You have to learn how to adapt to the person, and marriage is give and take. It comes from both sides. So I think this is really, really important. So it's mashallah, it's really interesting, like, you know, like all the things that you said, subhanAllah, I'm just like, my mind is spinning now because wallahi, you mentioned so many things, subhanAllah. But
I think that's a great point that you just made as well. Like also first I just feel like I just feel like at least, I mean, like, I do understand, like, you know, with non-Muslim couples, like, they know each other and then they live together, and sometimes it doesn't seem to work out. Like, but for me personally, like, I just feel like at least if you know someone, like, at least you kind of know what you're getting yourself into. But also, I do understand that once you live with them, you're gonna like understand and see all their flaws and see who they are for the bigger picture. But I personally just feel like it's good for a woman to know who she's going to get married to as well, not just like someone who just prays and looks the part and you think, okay, mashallah, let's get married, and you're literally just thrown into the deep end.
Yeah, definitely. No, I agree with that. But at the same time, I think there's at the end of the day, it's all with Allah. There's only so much that you can do. Because I mean, I see it even with like divorces these days. A lot of divorces are taking place, and people have been married to their own cousins, and they're still getting divorced. Do you know what I mean? So like, who can you know more than your own cousin? Like, as somebody to get married to. Do you know what I mean? But like, it happens. So I think the main thing with you know, this isn't supposed to be a talk specifically on like advice in marriage, but I think when you are married, as I said, it's a give and take thing, and you both have to be willing to make the marriage work, because marriage does take work. You have to be like mature enough to, you know, try to adapt to what each other likes. So I think like if we talk a little bit about questions, like since from your experience now that you've had, and I don't know if you did have specific questions that you asked the brother before getting married that you thought were beneficial, but what questions kind of would you advise for sisters to give to ask a brother, potential brother?
Yeah, one thing I would say to any sister who's single or been married before, like one thing you shouldn't do is when you're engaging in terms of marriage with this person, like don't tell the other person, the other brother, that what you expect of a husband, because you know, like men are good at, once they know that they want to marry you, like they would, the fact that you said, oh, I want basically a hardworking man who basically is going to take on a role as a father and a husband and take care of the financial household and stuff like that. Some guys are probably the sort of ones who would actually want to go with a woman who actually, like, when it comes to finance stuff, is like they're willing to, they're looking for a woman who basically want to pay 50-50 when it comes to the bills.
Yeah.
But once they find someone, like my own experience, that once they find someone that they like, and then you're sitting there telling them, okay, I want to, the guy that I'm looking to get married is like this, and then they would actually just pretend, like, just say like, yeah, I'm like that, like I'm that kind of person.
Yes, I agree with you. I agree.
So I didn't even, I mean, I was single, so no one even I had friends who were married, like had children, even before, by the time I got married, and they got married way before me. I wasn't even given no advice from them. So I was literally learning as I was going. And yeah, so never say what type of husband you're looking for on what you're expecting, because men are really good at showing up as that and showing up that they are that kind of person, because they want to basically marry you and they want to say the right words.
Yeah, subhanAllah. Sister Anisa is saying here in the comments, she says, there are so many factors which come into play. This is why I can't understand why some take the marriage process so lightly. And In Your Face says, love the person you marry, not marry the person you love. And mashallah, I think that's a really good advice as well. SubhanAllah. And I mean, to be honest, like even with that comment, there's a hadith of Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, he said that there isn't any cure for two who love each other except marriage. So obviously, you know, instead of like sometimes if you feel that you love a person, there's nothing wrong with loving a person before marriage, but it's what you do about the love, you know. This is the thing. And I think sometimes, you know, as practicing Muslims, we kind of dismiss the idea of finding love before marriage or being in love with somebody and wanting to marry that person. But it is advisable to love that person. Obviously, the person should be a practicing Muslim. That's as well a condition, because you cannot just dive into a marriage blind and to think that, oh, the love's going to carry you through if the person is not even praying 5 times a day and they're not, you know, practicing the religion properly. So there's, you know, just like Sister Anisa said, there's so many factors. But I want to just come back to the whole kind of the issue about like kind of time scale, because I think some people, like you mentioned, that, you know, about 6 months to get to know somebody. So if you're going to take 6 months to get to know somebody in a marriage, you know, you need to be really specific and precise. Try to like ask the actual serious questions, because I think sometimes, you know, people have this kind of, people have like ideas about who they want to get married to, or they'll be talking to somebody for lengthy periods of time. I come across sisters often who've been talking to brothers for years even. And, you know, they say that, oh, there's a really good guy and this and this. And it's just like, well, how long do you need to talk to somebody before you actually decide you want to marry them? I mean, if you're both really serious, why take such a long time? Because it's not Islamic. I think 6 months is a good length of time. And, you know, going past even a year, I just think it's, to be honest, it can be beyond ridiculous, because, as I said, you're not going to actually really know the person until you're in the marriage with them anyway. So part of it is with Allah what's going to happen. So you cannot like stop yourself or protect, you know, yourself from a bad marriage, you know, the possibility of a bad marriage, any kind of thing, by, you know, making it wait as long as possible, because you never know, the person could be doing a lot of things in that year while they're talking to you, or you're talking to them for 2-3 years. They could be talking to so many other people as well at the same time. Or who knows, if the person, maybe the brother's even married to somebody else, he could easily be hiding that while he's busy talking to you, and you're just kind of there discussing whether to get married or not. So there's so many different kind of things that could be happening. And I think sometimes sisters aren't aware of that fact as well. In Your Face says, this dunya is illusion and not perfect. We are only here only temporarily. So having high expectations is a sour desire to have. Yes, definitely, I agree. So that's another thing. Like, we have to really put our faith and our trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Sister Anisa said, may Allah protect us from those who plot in this way. Definitely. Ameen. Anisa said, I feel the same. 6 months is even quite long in my opinion. There are only so many things you can learn through talking up to a certain point. Absolutely, I agree. And you know what? I think personally, one of the things that you mentioned that I really liked was that you did the nikah, but you didn't actually move in with your husband until after, you know, you done your marriage, your wedding preparations. It was like a year later or something, you said. I personally think that, yeah, I think that is beneficial in the sense that obviously once you've done nikah with somebody, you can have that kind of relationship with them. If you're not living with them, like it's still halal, but you can, you know, obviously you can spend time with them by yourself, you know, and you can kind of get to know them a little bit more intimately without having that kind of, you know, your full on dedication because you're living with the person. So it's like I don't know, like almost like a cushion, if that makes sense. Like, you know, you'll kind of get like a little tester period, because I do know of sisters who they've done their nikah, for example, and obviously you're not living with the person, so it's still not the same as living with them. But at least, as I said, you know, you can learn more about the person's temperament and things like that, because you obviously you have your own private discussions maybe with them and this kind of thing. So you can go a little bit deeper with them on in that kind of aspect. Obviously, as I said, it's not the same as being married, but I think that is potentially good, because if you do decide, then you've got a chance then to decide, well, actually, I don't feel comfortable with this person. You know, it's about instincts as well. I think to some point you should trust your instinct, because maybe what the beauty or what attracted you to the person that you saw initially, maybe once you've done nikah with them, if you have that period that you're not living together, but you can actually spend time with them, going out with them by yourselves, this kind of thing, you can kind of see, you know, you can look out for signs and see, you know, what this person is about a little bit more. So what do you think about that?
I guess everyone's experience is different. So if they've done a nikah stage for 1 or 2 years, I know like people who've done 2 years, you know. I guess like I think when you're in that nikah stage and it's still like fresh and new, like it's still kind of like the honeymoon phase. Even though you're not living together, you probably just meet up. Because with me personally, we were just meeting up after work. He'll come pick me up from my house at 6 in the evening or 7 in the evening. We'll go out for a meal, and then he'll drop me home, and then that's how it was the whole year. Okay. But I guess like it's just still like it was literally still like the honeymoon stage. So like when it comes to that stage, like everyone's obviously so like happy and jolly, and it's like because you're not living together as well, and you don't really know the person. It's like they're just going to really show you like the best self and who they are. And obviously, like you said, like you can't obviously call it quits during those times. You know, like, but for me personally, it's just like I guess maybe some people who've gone through that stage where they do any kind of stage and they feel like you know, like he seems the part wherever we seem good, and they carry on living with this person, and it seems like nothing's really changed. He's still kind of like the same person that he betrayed himself by. It's still like that. We still have issues that we're trying to work on, but he didn't he didn't basically present himself in the way that he was doing, and then once you start living with a person, it's like a completely different person. SubhanAllah. I think that's one of the scariest things for sisters. And you know, this is, I just want to read a couple of points here that Sister Malahat has made, and I really love what she's saying. Actually, she said that it's very personal and specific, and she said she's against generalizing everything, because when it comes to marriage, definitely you cannot generalize. For some people, 2 days is enough, and for others, even 6 months isn't. So yeah, that's another thing. Like everybody is different, but my point here, I think the strongest thing I would like to say is that definitely you need to ask the right questions, because there's certain questions that you can ask that will give you a kind of a good idea about the person. You need to know what the person's character is like, their personality. And I think that's really important, like try to figure out the compatibility, and especially what you mentioned, part of that could be as well to do with how they was raised, their family upbringing, and as you said, baggage that they could be bringing into their marriage as well because of that. Something I heard Sheikh, whenever I try to mention somebody's name, wallahi, he just goes from my mind. Shadid Muhammad, I think, Shadid Muhammad, he said, you know, sometimes when when you looking for a spouse, it's important, like the family kind of dynamic that they've been brought up in, and which placement they are in. Like if they're a single child, for example, are they the oldest child? Are they the youngest? Are they the middle child? Because wallahi, depending on where you are in that kind of setup, this can all affect how your mentality is, how you kind of interact with people. You know, what you expect in a partner, what you're kind of looking for, what did you feel that you was missing as a child that you want from your spouse? All these things kind of come into play. So sometimes maybe it's not advisable basically for somebody who was an oldest child to marry somebody else who is also an oldest child, because you could be that you're both two people that you like to be in control, you like to be in charge of things, you know, and then maybe you could have some clashing in these kind of because of that, for example. Do you know what I mean? So there's different things. SubhanAllah. I'm sorry, there's a lot of comments that's coming, flooding in here now.
Sister Rasha says the most scary thing about getting married to someone is the lying period before the marriage, and suddenly after you discover everything and you have to deal with it. SubhanAllah, this is so true, sister. And really, that SubhanAllah is definitely true. And that's why the sister, she mentioned in the beginning, that's why it's good to marry somebody who at least maybe a family member knows this person, or somebody that's close to you knows of that person. She said, how do you know that the person is pretending? Yeah, SubhanAllah. The thing is, and you don't sometimes, you know, I would say, like, you really don't sometimes. Wallahi, like, you know, I'm a divorcee myself, so I can definitely attest to that. Like, SubhanAllah, one of the things that I liked about, for example, my ex-husband, I always loved the fact he was always talking about his family and talking about how much he loves his family, and SubhanAllah. And then when we did get married, then SubhanAllah, when I saw how he was treating his family, I was literally shocked. I was just like, SubhanAllah, this is the family, like how are you treating them? So, like, you see these kind of things, and you don't know until you're in it. And, you know, there's at that time, there's not really anything that you can do, SubhanAllah.
Yeah, SubhanAllah. Yeah, like, I mean, you just made a great point there, so.
SubhanAllah. Okay, Greenery has said nikah for 2 years plus another bid'ah is being created. No, I wouldn't call it a bid'ah, actually, because if you look at the Sunnah, there's lots of examples of people getting married or having their nikah but not living with each other, you know, straight away. Yeah. If you look at the Sunnah, there's plenty of examples of that, because a lot of people would get married, they wasn't even in the same country. So there's different reasons why you would, you know, perhaps not live with the person immediately. And there can be very valid reasons for that as well. So I wouldn't agree that it's a bid'ah, definitely not. Greenery also says, this is very messy. I know people lived in haram relationship for 6+ years, even 10 years, and then got married and didn't last. Absolutely, 100% agree. I see this all the time. Yeah. A lot of celebrities do that as well. This is like staple. They'll be living together 15 years, got 10 children. You know, you've been doing the husband, you've been doing the role of husband, or she's been doing the role of wife, and then they get married, and then it's divorced after like 6 months or something. And SubhanAllah, for me personally, when I see these kind of things, I even ask myself, why are they even getting married? What is even the point now? What is going to change? You've done all those roles of no, okay, one cognita says, how about polygamy? No, we're not entering that discussion today, SubhanAllah. It's a big topic, that one. I mean, marriage itself is SubhanAllah. Yeah, SubhanAllah. I mean, obviously it's a big topic. I just want to quickly say a few last closing points because we're coming to the end. And SubhanAllah, sister, you meant to, I'm sad that we had the technical difficulties in the beginning, because wallahi, you said so many things which I really feel have benefited the listeners, inshallah. Obviously, just sharing your own personal experience and, you know, just the things that you highlighted. So I just want to share some questions that I think is beneficial when you are talking to a future or potential spouse. And don't take just these few questions, because there's a lot more. I would advise you look at the lectures of Sheikh Shadid Mohammed. He's really, really good. I haven't listened to all of his talks, but he has a whole series on marriage itself. So really just look at that, because wallahi, he's very practical, and, you know, he goes into, you know, depth, like real depth about these things, because as I said, marriage is not something that even you can ask 100 million questions and still when you're married, it's going to be something completely different. So SubhanAllah. Okay, so I would... Yeah, Kevin. Yeah, SubhanAllah, it's true. It's true. It is a journey. It is a journey. And it's a test. That Allah says in the Quran that your family is fitna for you. They're a trial for you. So we can't expect that, you know, we're going to get married and everything's going to be fine and dandy, SubhanAllah. So my questions that I would ask the person, or some questions that I personally, from talking to the sister today, that I think is really, really important. To ask the person about their family background. How were they raised? What are their fondest childhood memories? And what childhood memories do they have which they feel has impacted their life in a really serious way? What are the childhood memories that, you know, that they don't like, for example? Well, sister, okay, she's a sister here, Miriam, is asking, what about reverts? Well, yeah, I'm a revert, and sister is married to a revert as well. So this is what we've been discussing. It all goes the same, to be honest. It's not like reverts have a different rule. So it's all the same, basically. A person is a person. Doesn't matter whether the person is a revert or they've been Muslim their whole lives, practicing brother. I know some sisters have married to practicing brothers, subhanAllah, and they've had the worst of marriages, and that they've been subhanAllah, that had the worst personalities. And this is not to say that practicing brothers are bad necessarily, but you don't know. Like, sometimes people have these experiences, and because the person is practicing as well, it makes Islam look bad. That's what is sad about it. If somebody's a Muslim but just a kind of maybe not much practicing Muslim, and they happen to not be a very good spouse, you could say, well, oh, they weren't practicing. But when the person is practicing and they're first line in the masjid praying, and they always, I mean, and then they go home and they don't treat their wife, and their family good, then this makes Islam look bad. That's the reality, and it's really sad that actually happens, subhanAllah. So another question that I would ask, and definitely childhood questions are really good, okay? So try to ask as much questions about the person's childhood as possible.
Can I just add a point as well?
Yes, of course.
One thing I would add, which is so essential as well, because obviously, like, the husband is the one, like, basically, is the one who is the one providing for the home.
Absolutely.
And look at, so obviously he's given that high status for a reason. So I personally would look at not what he tells you, but how was his dad like in the home?
Definitely.
Was he the one providing? How was his uncle, his brothers, his cousin? I mean, mainly the elderly, like uncles and the dad. How were they basically providing for their wives? Because if he's around, brought up, and that's his environment where his uncle and his dad are the ones providing, going out the way for the family. When you actually get married to that person, it's like it's something normal to him. It's not something he feels like, oh, this feels like a burden.
Absolutely.
Or like it feels like something completely new and feels like it's too much for me. And just like it literally does affect the marriage in itself. So that is one thing no one, like when I was single, like no one actually like spoke to me about what kind of questions like these that you even mentioned as well. No one actually spoke to me. Even the questions online about the potential spouse, there was nothing along about family.
Yes,
so,
of course. And family is so important. It's so important, especially, and we didn't even touch on the element of living with the person's family, because in some cultures it's expected that when they do get married, the wife is going to move in and live with the brother's family. And that's another kettle of fish, like altogether, subhanAllah. It's another thing that can cause a lot of problems, because sometimes those families can be the reason why the marriage even breaks down, subhanAllah. I just want to quickly read a couple more comments. Greenery says, just make sincere dua and go as you live with understanding and in giving and forgive. Bigger is jihad and nafs, as it does really affect what you see outside, especially Western countries. Very challenging, I think they're trying to say there. Rasha says, yes, agree. Prophet Muhammad ﷺ said, who came for marriage and have the religion and manners, not just one of them, it must have both. Yes, you have to have both, definitely. The deen is manners, like, subhanAllah. So this is really important. Father, sister, we've come up to the hour now, so we have to end the session. But if you want to carry on chatting with me, we can carry on Instagram, inshallah.
Okay, yeah, that's fine.
All right then, because I think there's another show that's supposed to be starting now, inshallah. So anybody who is on Instagram, you can follow the Niqabi Diaries or join us here, and we carry on the discussion, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Okay, I'm just going to invite Sister Najah here. I don't know why this is making beer down at this time, because it's so random. Okay, just waiting for Sister Najah to join. Had a really, mashallah, good discussion, so I want to just continue a little bit here. SubhanAllah. I just wanted to give something. I'm just going to read here now. I think I'm just waiting for her to join the thing because I did invite her, but she hasn't accepted. Okay. Okay, good. Yeah, she's joined now. She's joined. Yay. Alhamdulillah. What? It says she isn't able to join. Why? Okay, live. Yes. I don't know why, sis. It said that you weren't able, that you're not able to join. I don't know why. I'm just going to talk about the few questions that I picked up from just listening to this, and obviously in my own experience as well. Okay. So another question that I think is really important, like trying to get an understanding of the person's personality. And obviously, you know, you're never really going to know 100%, okay, but you need to ask these questions. Like I would ask the person, what do they do when they get angry? Okay, so how do they kind of express their anger? And obviously you're not going to, I'm sure a lot of people wouldn't say I go around breaking windows and like punching holes in walls and stuff like that, but you can still try to get some kind of idea. What does the person do when they get angry? And if the person has been married before and divorced, I think this is really important. You want to know what kind of, I think as a woman, when you go to marry a man who's been married already, and this goes both ways, okay, but obviously, I don't know, okay, it's not allowing me to my request. I sent you a request already and it's come through to me, your request. Your request came through to me and I accepted it, but it's not letting you join. I'm going to request you again and see if it works. I think if you're marrying somebody, oh, alhamdulillah.
Oh, so cool.
Walaikum salam, alhamdulillah. So I was just saying, sis, I think sometimes for sisters who looking to marry a brother and he happens to have been married before, I think it's important that you ask about his ex-wife, ask why they're divorced.
Yeah.
Obviously, they can't, like, you know, you don't want to like go full backbiting kind of thing, but it's interesting to listen to people's responses, because what I've seen like from sisters who have married some brothers previously is that, you know, sometimes they use the ex-wife to like paint a good picture of themselves. So for example, you know, a marriage, you know, when a marriage ends, you can't just blame one person. Two people are at fault, even if one person might have been like, you know, maybe there's been domestic abuse, for example. So whoever's been doing the domestic abuse, like definitely more blame would be on them, but it doesn't mean that the other person is perfect. Okay, so this is important to remember. But I think for some brothers, like from experiences that I've heard from other sisters, they've talked to brothers and the brother will like completely slate the ex-wife. Oh, she wasn't practicing, she doesn't wear hijab, she does this, she does that, she's not a good mother.
Yeah.
And you know, and it's like as women, sometimes I think that what happens with us, unfortunately, is that you almost get a buzz out of that sometimes. Some sisters, they feel excited because they feel like, oh, well, I'm already better than her then. Do you know what I mean? Like some people have mentalities like, oh, you know, so she wasn't good. His ex-wife wasn't good and poor him. And then you start feeling sorry for the guy. So when you do that, you put yourself already in this kind of situation where you're molding yourself to become somebody that, you know, do you see what I'm saying? Like, so you kind of do this thing. The reality is you might be exactly the same as how his ex-wife was. And if unless you've spoken to his ex-wife and dealt with her yourself, you don't know what he's really like, you know, and even if you have had some interaction with her, you don't know what he did to her to make her behave like that. So you're just kind of taking his word for it. So this kind of thing is very important. Like, you know, brothers, I think, like there's a saying that it says it's a non-Muslim saying, but it's like a man a gentleman doesn't kiss and tell or something like that.
Oh yeah.
So from that saying in this kind of perspective is, you know, a man should have honor and like kind of dignity. In Islam we call it ghira, but even over the woman who is divorced, he should have some kind of sense of ghira, protection over her, that he doesn't want to make her look bad in front of other people.
Yeah,
Okay,
that's
so
okay. Yeah.
your marriage might have ended, but you don't need to talk bad about the sister. You could mention, like, your main reasons for getting married, whatever it was, but you
Yeah.
still have to, because I think, as I said, sometimes, we start feeling sympathy for somebody, believing they've had an experience that they might not have had it as they portray. And
Yeah.
then you feel that, you've kind of, like, I don't know, got one up in a way. Like, I'm trying to kind of articulate, like,
Yeah.
the experience, things happen. So this is important. And not only that, but if he has children, what is his relationship with his children, and how often does he see them? Because I see that there's brothers, they get married, and
Yeah.
they get newly married when they've got an ex-wife and children, and
Yeah.
she's raising kids. And maybe they'll talk about how rubbish she is as an ex-wife, but then they'll still happily pick up themselves and go and live in another country or another city and hardly even see their children. So for me, what does that say? Do you know what I mean? So these things are really important for sisters to look into. Even if the brother's practicing, this happens with practicing brothers as well. And I'm not judging them per se, like, because obviously there's reasons why they've had to be able to do that, but these things should make you think before you just get married to this person, because it could be, if somebody, for me, if somebody doesn't have I know they say that obviously the mother's bond with their child is a lot, but a father's bond with their child is a lot too, and you need to look at however this man has dealt with his ex-wife and his children, he can do the same to you. That's the reality. So
I believe that, like, the way he treats his ex-wife and his children, that's exactly how he's going to treat you. I don't believe that he's treating her like rubbish, and to you is going to be like treating you like some queen.
That's it. That's basically it, So that's what I'm saying. So that's why you have to be careful. If he starts talking about his ex-wife like she's the most evil planet, then for me, as a practicing Muslim, that's not a good sign, because you shouldn't talk badly about somebody like that. I don't go around social media talking bad about my ex-husband. Do you know what I mean? In the community, like, my experience is my experience, but it's not for me to start bad mouthing him, because he's a brother, he's a Muslim brother. Do you know what I mean? And to know, I'm saying, so these things is really important. And another reason why this is important is because sometimes it comes down to the baggage as well, what kind of baggage that people have. So it's kind of questions, because you want to know, like, what does that person expect of you now? And I think sometimes as women, my own experience, like, when you've had you didn't enjoy, you can have some marital baggage and feel that, like, you're not trusting towards men and stuff like that, because you think that treated the same way again, and this kind of thing. So these are also issues that you kind of learn to deal with, subhanAllah.
And I feel like if you've, like, I haven't been divorced, whatever, but I personally, like, if I was in that situation, like, I would rather go and heal myself.
Exactly.
What I've gone through with the partner I was with, and heal from that. Maybe there were other areas from the past that's like literally made it even worse for me. So I would actually go and seek help and get therapy and some counseling to allow me to overcome it. Because, like, you don't want to bring that into your next marriage as well.
Of course, it's really important. Alhamdulillah, I was single. I've been single for 12 years, so I've been doing a lot of self-healing. Alhamdulillah, it's taken a long time, but alhamdulillah, I think this is important, because sometimes I used to think, oh, like, how comes, like, I can't find anybody and stuff like that. But then when I really took time to reflect, I thought, you know what, Allah is saving me. I'm single for a reason. So, and I should thank Allah for that, because obviously Allah knows what's best for me, and I'm not the kind of person that can just be with anybody, because I'm not saying anybody could just be with anyone, but I don't feel that I'm that kind of person that I need to have a man around in that way, so I feel like that Allah was saving me. So I just started saying alhamdulillah that I am single, because there's nothing wrong with being single as well. So I think this is important, like, your mindset as well as a woman. because I think sometimes if you come over like you're kind of almost desperate, or really like, you know, you're really trying to get married so badly, and this is, I think this is mostly for and not to say that sisters who have been married, who have not been married before have this, but especially for divorced sisters, because I think because in the Muslim community we often get kind of left on the sidelines, and where the less desirable choices and things like that. Sometimes sisters have a sense of desperation about them. They feel like because they're older, or they feel that because they've been married before and they're divorced now or widowed, or maybe because they've got children from the previous marriage, that, you know, nobody's going to want them. So they kind of try to make themselves more open, but it kind of sometimes works to their detriment, because yes, you need to be open-minded, but you need to protect yourself at the same time and not act like you're somebody that's in need of being saved. Like, try to save yourself first, if that makes sense. So I think that's really important. Like, you don't need to be saved by anybody. Allah is the one that's going to save you. Do you know what I mean? So let Allah save you, save yourself, like heal yourself, and like, you know, build yourself as well. Make a life for yourself, and try to just become strong by yourself. And if you've got children, be strong for your children and teach them how to be strong too. So this is important. And then inshallah, you know, Allah will bring the right person that's gonna, you know, it's gonna add something good to your life, not take away from it, if that makes sense. Because sometimes you think you're adding somebody to your life, but really you're adding somebody, but they're taking a lot from you. You know, they're taking from your life in maybe negative way. So you want positivity added, not like you're relying on the person to bring happiness and other things. Because I think that's another issue as well when you're looking for a spouse. It comes back to the whole childhood issues as well. Sometimes like people have childhood traumas, and if you're looking for a spouse to like fulfill certain things that you lacked in your childhood, that's another problem. Like, it can be like detrimental, because you're putting a lot of pressure on that person to become this one that's gonna, like, you know, heal your wounds. But it shouldn't really be like that. You have to deal with these things before, you know, because that other person, they've probably got their own wounds that they need to deal with still, you know. That's a possibility too. So if you're both wounded and you kind of, you know, trying to fix each other's problem, but while you still have your own problem, and maybe the other person will try to fix your problem in a way that you don't want them to fix it, or you don't think is really actually helping you. So sorry, Kiki Ben asked, is it good question to ask what you learned through your parents? I think that's a brilliant question. So what did you learn through your parents about marriage? I think that's a really good question, actually. That's definitely one for the list, mashallah. That's definitely, because I think, just like you were saying before, it's about your childhood and like how your family dynamic was, and you know how you mentioned earlier on. Can you hear me, sister?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, yeah, because the volume from your side is quite low. But you did mention that, you know, asking if their family, like, how did their parents get married, for example? Was it a love marriage, or was there love in their marriage as well? Because sometimes you have families who the parents, they don't really have much love between them. You don't it's not something that the children see, at least. You know, so there's this kind of, you know, different kind of, and as well, even affection as well that's shown between the parents. That's another thing too, because some cultures, the parents don't show any affection towards each other. Like you'll notice, maybe some people have had experiences where they never saw their parents hugging. Yeah. Or they never saw like their father kiss their mother on the cheek or anything like that. You know, so there's these kind of things. Like sometimes if somebody's grown up in that kind of household, like what then does that person expect? Like, you know, in their marriage, would they feel like, you know, if you wanted to go and hug them and your child saw? You know what I mean? All these kind of things are interesting.
Yeah, but even if someone's gone through all of that, like exactly what you mentioned, if they've gone to actually heal themselves from all those things that they've experienced and stuff, once they, you know, get married and stuff, that they would actually have a loving, healthy marriage as well.
Definitely. Yes, subhanAllah. Like, I think that's it's just interesting. There's so many things, like, as I said, like, everybody's so unique and individual. And even though we've had even though some people have exactly the same experiences, it doesn't mean that they're going to react to them in the same way. There's so many, like, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's just, yeah, it's really, really interesting. Because as I said, I've known some sisters who they've married people like from very similar or exactly the same kind of family backgrounds, being raised in the same way. And when they married, it was just a disaster, you know? So it's just like, you know, it's not that being the same is best or better. It's just about your dynamic. And it's not even about being completely opposite either, because sometimes people, like, they do say opposites attract, and I do agree with that to an extent. But I think when you marry somebody who's definitely completely the opposite of you in every single way, it can be challenging. It can be exciting as well, but you have to be open to kind of accept those differences, and also have a lot of patience in like being able to adapt. And that other person as well will also have to do the same thing too, because otherwise you're just going to start clashing, you know. So and especially when there's children involved, and you start raising children and stuff, like the ideas, like how would you what ideas do you have for like raising kids and stuff like that, subhanallah. So yeah, there's just all sorts of like subhanallah, like it's really deep to like think about, like, to be honest. Kiki Benshi's also saying, maybe also ask, what do you expect from me in the marriage? Yeah, I asked that question as well, definitely asked that. And Sister Najah, she did mention that earlier on as well. So, and it's important as well. Yeah, I'm going to report your page, actually. Disgusting. Sorry, just one of the comments there. I don't know if you can read the comments, but yeah. Yeah, subhanallah. But I think asking what the person expects from you in the marriage is important as well, because just like Najah mentioned earlier on, you know, sometimes maybe they come from a home where both parents were splitting the bills, both parents were working, this kind of thing. And if you want to be the stay at home, like, mashallah, typical kind of, you know, the Islamic kind of, you know, like the kind of the Islamic family setup where the woman isn't required to work and the man is supposed to provide, you know, for everything, then this could be an issue. So it's really important. And just like you said as well, it's important not to tell the man what you want specifically. You ask him the questions to wait for the answers, because, you know, don't make yourself so obvious. I think as a woman, it's always good to hold back. Don't give yourself away, you know.
I believe that let him do the talking. Like,
definitely.
Ask him what do you expect from a woman. Like say if you were going to get married, what do you expect of her? Like, how did you imagine her to be like? And then he'll start talking. And one thing women need to do is just take on what he says, because some women would take that on and just be like, I can change him, I can change his mind. Like, a lot of women have this thing in their head. Like, you need, with men, they're literally just like a book. They just show you who they are. But women, sometimes they just don't really listen in, and then like when they get married and live with them, just like, oh, but he said this, he said that, and I thought I could change him. I don't know, like.
Subhanallah.
Not listening, not just think with their heads. Imagine
definitely
what it's like when we live with them.
Definitely. And sometimes we get too excited, I think, and we think that this guy is like, oh, mashallah, he looks amazing, so let me start talking about all my hopes and my dreams. But then like he said, he could just be saying yes, 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 because he just wants to marry. He just wants to get married. And that's it. That was my experience, like in my first marriage. Like, you know, we had all these plans that was going to do all these things, but it's just like, well, actually, when I got married, it's just like, okay, what's happening now? Okay, because we said we was going to do that. We said we was going to do that. Like, come on, let's go here and let's do this. And it was just like, it just didn't happen. So, yeah, subhanallah. So it's important. Yeah, alhamdulillah. It's really important.
And I feel like once you're being married as well, it's like, you know, like what you want next.
Yeah. Well, you should. And I think that it's in order to know what you want next, you need to take the time to know, because some sisters, I've seen this, sisters who are divorced and within a year they're married again. I personally, you know, I can, when I got divorced, I felt like I was really over my ex-husband. But there's one thing being over a man and being ready to marry somebody else. because you know, you need to have time for yourself, because you need to have time to think. It's just that simple. And thinking is something that should take a long time. It's not like, oh, a 5-minute something. You need to really sit down and think about your life, the direction it's going in, what you hope to achieve, all these different kind of things. And you need to, I think, as a divorcee, you need to look seriously at where you think that you failed in the marriage, not the man or what he did, but you need to think about what you did, your personal responsibility to the failure of the marriage and why it happened. Because through that you can learn and forgive yourself for your own mistakes and try to heal them, as like, you know, heal the wounds that you've got or whatever, all these kind of things. And have that consciousness to get to know yourself better and at a deeper level, so that you can say, well, actually, this is what I need in a partner, or this is what was going to help me in a partner, this kind of person that has, you know, he's patient with this, for example, or he's good at that, or, you know, or somebody that maybe you want, somebody that's going to listen to you, you know, or somebody that, you know, you can learn from. There's so many different things. You need to think about these things like on a deep level. And I personally think a lot of the time people just don't talk enough these days. They don't have level of communication, you know. Yeah, because subhanAllah, like people often, like, there's either people, they either don't talk or they just get so angry, and maybe everybody's talking or shouting and nobody's listening. So you need to be like really balanced in between that. So it's these things is subhanAllah, it's really important. And the dedication as well of the person, you know, if what does a marriage mean to them? You know, that's another thing. What does marriage mean to them? Because I think for some people, marriage is something, it's like a disposable. And I don't know how you would find out from that person, like, what they really think of marriage in general. Because, you know, you hear a lot of brothers talk about polygamy, for example, and we know that's something definitely is part of our religion. But there's some brothers, they do it like, it's like, I don't know, like I mean, I don't see it so often, to be honest, but some brothers, for example, they want to do it, but then if they can't, like, if they're not able to, like, keep up with looking after, for example, more than one wife, then they'll just get divorced. And I just think that's sad, because it's just like, you know, you've married another sister and she has her expectations, but because maybe you're financially not able to keep providing, or maybe you don't have time, then you just get divorced. But it's, for me, it shouldn't be as simple as that. So how, you know, do you know what I mean? Like, polygamy is an option for you, but if you know, if so, that's what I'm saying. Like, you need to talk to brothers like that. Like, what do they think? Because sometimes I think that some brothers, they feel that they just don't take they want to do polygamy, but then they don't take it as seriously as, for example, maybe their first marriage. If that makes sense. I think that happens sometimes. People feel that, so they'll get married to a second sister, and then, if it's too hard for them, then they just get divorced from her. But it's not like having a second job. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's a person, it's a whole, like, life, and maybe they have children as well. So it's something, you know, it's important to, like, weigh up these things, subhanAllah.
I think everyone's marriage is unique. So
of course, it is definitely. Alhamdulillah, it really is.
I personally don't think there's like a manual book to know. It's just like, and I don't feel like we know, like, people that actually work out to actually, like, married to them, live with them, and you go through things together.
Definitely, I agree. Do you know, there's a book that I've been reading, actually. I haven't finished reading it yet, but it's called Love and Respect. I can't remember the guy's name, but it's called Love and Respect. You'll find it if you look on. It's basically written by a Christian. I think he's like maybe like a pastor or priest or something like that. But, you know, he's a religious guy, and he basically talks about how in a marriage, a woman needs to be loved, and a man needs to be respected. And he said it's not a case where women don't need to be respected, because they do, but the way, like, you know, you have to respect a woman, definitely, but a woman, she wants to be shown that she's loved. She wants to feel that she's loved. So then it's important, for example, like, some women, they like to receive gifts as a show of affection from their husbands. Some of them, they want to be told, I love you, you know. some of them, they want the hugs and the kisses, this kind of things. So there's different ways that a woman, she likes to be shown love. So if basically the husband has to do these things so that the woman will feel that, oh yeah, you know, he loves me. And for the man, he wants to be loved too, definitely, but the man, he needs to be respected. So if you do something which he feels is disrespectful, that it's going to make him feel that he doesn't want to express, he just want to show that love for you, even if he does love you. But it's gonna kind of put a bee in his bonnet, like, do you know what I mean? It's gonna make him feel like, oh well, why is she treating me like this? That means she doesn't respect me. Yeah. You know, and so it's a very interesting book because it talks about how, like, and this guy, he said he's counseled a lot of people in their marriages and helped them. Yeah, but subhanAllah, it's really beneficial. Sorry, my battery's running low now, so I'm gonna have to end this. SubhanAllah, because my battery's gonna die and then I'll lose the whole thing. So inshallah, do you know what? Inshallah, sister, we can do follow-up talks about this if you want, if you've got time. And yeah, because it's been really nice talking to you. Jazakallah khair, and thank you so much for taking the time today.
It's okay. Thank you.
All right, take care, sister. Assalamu alaikum.